All right, today we're jumping into a huge concept that's changing how the biggest companies on the planet handle their most valuable asset, their data. We're going to be talking about the data fabric, a really cool idea that promises to bring order to all that data chaos. Let's dive in.
So it really all starts with this strange paradox, one that you've probably even run into on your own projects. Companies have more data than ever before, right? It's everywhere, in different systems, different clouds, tons of applications. But when they need to answer a seemingly simple business question, they're totally stuck. How can that be?
Well, it's because most companies' data looks a lot like what you see here on the left. It's siloed, meaning it's trapped in all these different departments. Getting to it is incredibly slow. It can take weeks of engineering work just to pull two simple things together, and it's super risky, with no clear rules about who's allowed to see what. The goal, where everyone wants to be, is over there on the right, data that's connected, fast, and secure.
So, before we get to the solution, let's just take a second to really appreciate the scale of this problem. We're not just talking about a messy spreadsheet here. This is a massive, company-wide headache. This mess leads to something that people in the industry call a data swamp. You know, the original idea was pretty good. Let's put all our data into one giant data lake. But what happens when you do that without any rules, or quality checks, or any context? Well, it just turns into this murky, unusable mess where good information basically goes to die. It's pretty much the digital version of a hoarder's garage. Okay, so how on earth do you clean up a data swamp without, spending years and millions of dollars trying to move everything? Well, the answer is you don't. You build a smarter way to access everything right where it is. And this brings us to the data fabric.
I want you to think of a data fabric not as another giant container for your data, but as an intelligent layer that sits on top of everything, like a smart connective tissue. It doesn't actually store the data itself. Instead, it just weaves all your different data sources together, giving you this one single, unified view of everything, no matter where it physically lives.
See, for years, decades really, the philosophy was pretty straightforward. If you want to analyze your data, you have to physically copy it from all the different places it lives and then dump it into one central spot, like a data warehouse. But this is so slow, it's really expensive, and it just creates tons of duplicate data.
The data fabric just completely flips that idea on its head. The new philosophy is so simple, but it's totally revolutionary. Just leave the data where it is. Access it when you need it through this intelligent virtual layer. The new motto is connect, don't collect. And that simple shift in thinking, well, it makes everything else possible.
Okay, so how does this all actually work? It sounds kind of like magic, right? Well, it's not magic, of course. It's really a combination of three super powerful technologies, or pillars. Let's break them down.
First up, we've got something called data virtualization. This is really the engine of the whole thing. The best way to think about it is like a universal playlist for music. It can play songs from Spotify, Apple Music, and your own computer files, all without having to move a single file. That's exactly what data virtualization does for data. It lets you ask one question and get answers from a ton of different sources, all in real time. Next up is active metadata. And the key word here, the really important word, is active. This isn't just some dusty, static data dictionary that nobody ever looks at. No, this is the living, breathing brain of the fabric. It is constantly scanning your data, figuring out what it is, finding sensitive information, and tracking where it came from. This is what puts the smart in the smart system. And that brings us to our final pillar, the semantic layer. You can think of this as the universal business translator for the whole company. In most organizations, if you ask 5 different departments to define revenue, you'll probably get 5 different answers. The semantic layer solves that problem. You define a term once, in plain English, and the fabric makes sure that every single report and every dashboard uses that exact same trusted logic.
And here's where we see it all come together, right? It's a pretty simple stack when you break it down. Way down at the bottom, your data stays exactly where it is. Then, the virtualization core connects to all of it. On top of that, the semantic layer translates all that raw text speak into business terms everyone can understand. And finally, at the top, your users and your apps get the fast, trusted, and consistent data they need.
All right, theory is great and all, but let's make this feel a bit more real. Let's walk through a practical example to see how this actually makes decision-making way, way faster. Okay, so imagine this. An analyst has a super urgent question. Are we about to sell out of our most popular product? Now, in the old world, answering this would be a whole project. You'd need a data engineer to build a complicated pipeline to copy data from the sales system and the inventory system. That could take days. But with a data fabric, the virtualization engine queries both of those systems live, combines the answers in memory, and gives you the answer in seconds. The value there is just instant.
Now, that sounds incredibly powerful, but it also, well, it sounds a little risky, doesn't it? If you're connecting everything together, how do you make sure that people only see the data they're actually supposed to see? This is where that smart brain of the fabric really shines.
Well, remember that active metadata we talked about? It's not just for giving you context, it's the core of your security. It is constantly scanning all of your connected data, automatically finding and tagging sensitive information. It's smart enough to recognize patterns, like credit card numbers or personal IDs, without a human having to go in and manually label anything. And once that sensitive data is tagged, the fabric can apply security rules automatically, in real time. So you can create one central rule that says, hey, only people in the finance department can see the raw financial data. Then when someone from marketing tries to look at that same data, the fabric instantly masks it for them. Governance becomes automatic and proactive instead of manual and reactive.
So what's the big payoff here? What's the bottom line? It's not just about being faster or more secure. It's about building a data foundation that's flexible, efficient, and ready for whatever comes next.
Let's put a number on it. This is a big one, because the fabric is all about connecting to data instead of constantly building and fixing pipelines to copy it. Companies are seeing up to a 40% reduction in their data integration costs. I mean, that is a huge efficiency gain. It frees up so many resources to work on actual innovation.
Okay, let's bring this home. Why does any of this matter for your career? This is super important. First, artificial intelligence and machine learning models are only as good as the data you feed them. A data fabric provides that clean, governed, context-rich data that makes AI actually work and be trustworthy. Second, with data privacy laws getting tougher all the time, companies are desperate for automated solutions, and this is it. But most importantly for you, these are the skills that companies are hiring for right now. Understanding data virtualization, semantics, active metadata, this isn't just for a class. This is how you build a future-proof career.
And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about. For years, we've all heard that data is the new oil. But you know, oil that's just sitting in the ground is pretty useless. You need a refinery to turn it into something valuable. So as AI becomes the engine that powers every single modern business, the data fabric might just be the intelligent refinery that every company is going to need to survive.